He had like a cloak on. It was all a bit strange. She was once asked by a guest where they can get a monorail to Universal. I'm gonna be honest, I ended up being in a gift shop with Kevin Jonas for like 20 minutes whilst it rained, which was the most surreal experience of my life. And their child opened their legs and just started to pee all over the floor. I just find it funny that like you look at someone and say that to them. The guy just lost it. That was fun. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my channel if you are new around here. So obviously, as of right now, the Disney parks are closed, but for today's video I wanted to kind of spread a little bit of Disney magic and talk to you guys about some crazy guest stories that I encountered whilst working in Walt Disney World last year. Obviously I worked in quick service food and beverage, so I don't have a ton of stories to tell that are completely different. So I actually managed to rope in some of my friends and they have helped me out by sending me some of their crazy stories that they experienced last year whilst working there. So obviously, first of all, this is no tea, no shade to any of the guests in Walt Disney World. Every day we experienced some of the weirdest things, and I just wanted to share them with you. Obviously everything's going to be anonymous. All of my friends I'm going to keep anonymous as well, so yeah, I hope you enjoy this video and get a little bit of a laugh out of it as well. So the first story I want to tell you is one that I kind of briefly shared in my pin collection video, and that is about the gender reveal guy. That's what I'm going to call him. I don't know who he was. Basically this guy turned up in the parks. He had like a cloak on. It was all a bit strange, and he was walking around the restaurant and he came and I served him. And basically as I was giving him his order, I was like, oh, have a great day, and I had commented on his pin collection because he had a lanyard that was completely full of pins, a lot of pins that I'd never seen before, a lot of pins from Tokyo and various other Disney parks in the world. And basically he was telling me that he had just recently got back from a trip to Tokyo Disney, and I was like, oh, how was it? And we were chatting about that for a while, and this is one of my favourite things about the job, by the way, meeting people like that who have been to so many cool places. And he was telling me about his travels, but he was also telling me that his wife was pregnant. He was telling me they were Orlando residents and they have annual passes, and they came into the parks today because they wanted to have kind of one last day in the parks before his wife got too pregnant to be there, and to film their gender reveal video. And he also told me that not only were they filming that, they were actually filming their entire pregnancy reveal video because no one at this point knew that they were having a baby, no one in their family. They weren't like vloggers or anything like that, I don't think. I think they were just filming it to put on Facebook for their friends and family to see, as they were annual pass holders and they thought they may as well. So because of this, I now had established that I was one of the very few people to know that this couple were actually going to be having a baby. And I felt very honoured, so I gave them as a magical moment a pink slushie and a cake pop that had, it was multicoloured but it had blue sprinkles on it, and I was like, okay, here's a treat, whichever one you guys end up having, a boy or a girl, then here is a pink slushie or a blue cake pop. And he was so grateful for the treats. Anyway, he left with his food, didn't think much of it. About half an hour later he actually came back and was like, we just ate our food, we haven't filmed the video yet, but thank you so much for the treats. I wanted to thank you, and he actually gave me a little pin. And yeah, I just thought it was really sweet. He gave me this pin and I still have it on my lanyard. Again, if you guys haven't seen the video, I'll link it down below, but you'll see the pin that he gave me. And I feel like it's not really a weird guest story, but it's definitely a more unusual one. Like, I didn't think I would ever be involved in something like that. To this day I want to know how they're doing and like how their kid is, but yeah, it was a super cute moment and I'm glad I got to experience it. The next story I'm going to tell isn't related to one specific incident because this happened a number of times, like more than I would ever think would happen. So a guy, he was kind of an elderly guy, not like super elderly, but he could definitely be someone's grandparent. He turned up at the front of the counter. He hadn't been in a queue to like order any food, he just came straight to the counter. And at first I was like, oh, he just wants a drink refill, no problem. So I went over and asked him what I could get him, and he basically told me that he had ordered an entire meal but it hadn't arrived and he'd been there for half an hour. So at which I started panicking. I was like, okay, do you have your receipt? I can quickly go check it for you. He was like, no, they didn't give me a receipt. At this point I knew something was slightly fishy because I knew that every single cast member who works on the tills has to give a receipt to the guest, and often sometimes they might lose their receipt, but generally speaking, people would always keep their receipt. So I knew at this point that he probably hadn't actually ordered anything, so I went and spoke to a coordinator about it and was like, okay, this guy is definitely trying to get free food out of us. And she was like, okay, just go and find out what he wants, because if it's just like a drink, then just give it to him and then he'll leave. So I went over and asked what he wanted, and he proceeded to reel off basically everything we sold on our menu. And for those of you who don't know, you probably do, but food in Disney World is not that cheap, and especially for like a burger and fries, it could be a good $15, and we were not in the position to be giving that away for free at this point, nor did we want to. So yeah, I obviously explained to the guy that we don't have your receipt, we don't have proof that you bought anything, so we can't give you the food, unfortunately. If you can get to the register that you paid at, and get a receipt, then go for it, but unfortunately we can't do anything about this. And he kicked off. He went mental. This also happened to another woman who had claimed she was waiting for her food for like over half an hour, but actually wasn't. She just hadn't ordered anything. It hit the fan, you guys. Like, this guy went crazy, and the same happened with the woman that this also happened with. She started screaming at every single cast member, every single guest that got in her way. The guy just lost it, and I didn't know what to do. I was just stood there like, help me, someone. Eventually a leader had to come out and make sure he was okay. I don't know if he ever actually got the food or if he was just told to leave. I imagine he was probably just told to leave. I don't know what happened after that, but this went on for a good hour of this guy just staying in the restaurant and refusing to leave until he got his food, which obviously he didn't, because he didn't pay for it. So the next story is of a woman who had a very large family with her. Now, big families at Disney World is a very common thing. This happens a lot. We'll see a big extended family of lots of kids, especially coming into the restaurant. Usually it's not really a problem because it just means it's a slightly bigger order. And obviously if you're buying for a very large family at Disney World, it's going to be expensive. So they were just doing their order. It was basically quite simple, just a lot of plain hot dogs, which makes our lives quite easy. And the next thing I know, she's asking me if she can have a Mickey sipper, and I was like, okay, well, sure, you did order one, it was on your order, so I got it down for her, which is basically like a big cup. It was like a Mickey Mouse shaped cup with a straw. They broke all the time, and if I'm going to be honest, not worth the money, but she wanted one for one of her kids, so I gave her the Mickey sipper, and I thought, off she goes. No, she then turns around and tells me that she actually ordered 10 Mickey sippers because she needed one for each of the children in her party. And I was like, right, sure. Might have been an error on the register. The cast member on the register probably didn't put it through properly. Let me see what I can do. So I went and spoke to my coordinator again and was like, this woman wants 10 Mickey sippers and didn't pay for them because it probably wasn't her fault. I explained that she wanted 10 Mickey sippers, there was only one put through on the receipt, what shall I do? So she said, okay, if it was like 2 more then I would have given them to her, but she needs 10, so let's make her go and pay for them because she clearly hasn't paid for them. So I went over and told her the whole situation and was like, you haven't paid for them already, we also have to add them on to your bill. Again, she kicked off because she was adamant that she'd paid for them, even though the receipt clearly showed that she hadn't. So I had to give her entire party 10 Mickey sippers, thinking that she wasn't going to pay for them because, let's be real, she was not going to go back to a register and pay. Sure enough though, she actually did go and pay for them. I watched her do it and she came back over to tell me that she'd paid and kind of prove it to me, so I gave her the sippers and she left with 10 Mickey sippers sat in a stroller. The next story I have to tell is about a child, and obviously children in Disney World get very tired and angry and cranky. It's not uncommon to see them having a tantrum and their parents like frantically trying to calm them down, but this one stuck out for me because it was honestly hilarious. So this child had been having a tantrum for a good 10 minutes. We could hear it. I was on greeter this day, so I could actually walk around and like talk to people. So I was kind of stood near where the tantrum was happening, and I was looking at the families to say like, do you need anything? Can I get you anything? We're not really supposed to ask them if they need help, but often it's just reassuring to know there's a cast member there and we're reassuring them that it's okay, they're not causing too much of a scene, even though they definitely were at this point. Like, the whole restaurant was basically quiet, just watching this child on the floor. So yeah, as I mentioned, the child was lying on the floor, completely like spread out in the middle of the restaurant on the floor. and her family were just watching her having a tantrum. And obviously every family deals with this sort of thing differently, and I'm in no position to judge what the family should have done. What they did probably worked for them, but yeah, she was lying on the floor, and the next thing I know, I look up and the family have just left. They've gone. They've just walked out of the restaurant. So yeah, they left their child on the floor, and I was just kind of staring at the child like, I don't really know what to do now, because technically they are now a lost child, which means that I have to stay with them until their family return. So I stood there watching this child have a complete meltdown on the floor. They were quite young, maybe like 3 years old. Obviously had no idea what was actually going on right now, probably hadn't realised their family had left. She was wearing a really cute princess dress as well, which is really quite sad because she definitely ruined it on the floor. But yeah, it must have been about 10 minutes until her family actually came back. I think it was like her uncle or something, just came and scooped her up off the floor and left. And that was literally the last time I saw or heard of them. So I mean, that happened a lot. Often I would be left to be a babysitter, which was always interesting, and especially this day when the child was just lying on the floor and I could not do anything about it. So the next story kind of needs a little bit of background. Basically, if a VIP or a famous person or a celebrity or anyone who I think can pay for it comes into any of the parks and they obviously require it, they can basically have a kind of guest services tour guide person with them. They kind of act as like a bit of a security guard for them, and they also are able to order food for them. It often happens if there's like a really huge group of people. They will order food for them and make sure everything is sorted. So one of these people came over to me and had ordered like 15 hot dogs or something like that, and I was like, okay, it's gonna be like a sports team or like, I don't know, like a school trip or something. And then the group actually appeared behind the woman, and I was like, okay, definitely going to be like a sports team or something like that. There were lots of people kind of looking at them like, do I know who you are? And it wasn't until I actually got home that night, my younger sister actually messaged me saying that the rapper Sway Lee had been in Magic Kingdom that day, and it wasn't until I looked at his Instagram that I realised that that's who it was. So, you know, serving famous people is always a fun time. It's actually really hard because you're told you have to act as normal as possible around them, and for me this occasion was completely fine because I did not have a clue who this guy was, but he's really famous, so if you guys like Sway Lee or are a fan of him, I served him a hot dog and it was great. He was actually really nice. Obviously if a celebrity is with a tour guide, they're obviously not obliged to speak to you because that's the tour guide's job, but he still said thank you. Like, we handed him their drinks and he said thanks, and his friends were all nice as well, so I feel like that was a really positive experience. I was super worried about serving a famous person and it being really like awkward and them being rude, but generally he was really nice and I think he had a great day. So another celebrity encounter that almost happened but didn't was the Jonas Brothers. So again, a little bit of backstory. Basically, I'd bought tickets to go and see them in Orlando before my program started. I'd bought the tickets, and so as soon as I got on my program, I booked the day off immediately, so I knew that I was not going to be working that day and I could go into Orlando and watch the Jonas Brothers, because if you guys know me, I used to be a huge fan of the Jonas Brothers when I was younger, so this was a very big deal. So the day rolled around that I was meant to be seeing the Jonas Brothers. I was super excited, and then I realised that I'd booked the wrong day off of work, and actually the day I was seeing the Jonas Brothers was actually meant to be the day after. So not only had we come back from Miami a day early because I knew that I needed to be there, I'd also booked the wrong day off work and was actually scheduled to work the following day, which is where I was meant to be seeing the Jonas Brothers. Anyway, I freak out and immediately try and find someone to cover my shift. Thankfully someone can, and it's all sorted. The leaders were all super understanding on the problem, and I kind of said to them, like, do you guys want me to come into work today, like, instead? And they didn't want me to, so I decided to go into the parks. Now, bear in mind at this point I'd had about an hour's sleep because we'd been to Miami and come on a coach home, and someone basically messaged in our big group chat to say that the Jonas Brothers were wandering around the Disney parks. At this point I was like, well, off I go. So I got straight on a bus and straight into the parks, and I went trying to basically find the Jonas Brothers, which was a lot harder said than done. I'm gonna be honest. I ended up being in a gift shop with Kevin Jonas for like 20 minutes whilst it rained, which was the most surreal experience of my life. But what was actually happening that day, and I didn't realise this, is that they went into the restaurant that I worked in, Cosmic Rays, with their tour guide, and they were served by one of my friends who worked there on the bay that I usually work on. So had I been working the shift that I was supposed to work that day and had actually got the days of the concert right, I would have served the Jonas Brothers in Disney World. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I'm still annoyed about the whole situation. I'm still annoyed that I got the day wrong because I would have been working that day, and I'm mad about it. I'm still really mad. Apparently they stayed in the restaurant for quite a long time as well, which again annoys me. I annoyingly didn't get to the parks until after this had happened, but I did still see Kevin, and it was the weirdest experience ever. I feel like a very proud moment for cast members is when they were able to go up to a guest who's smoking and remove them from the parks. This definitely happened to me a couple of times. I think the funniest story has to be when I was again on Greta. A lot of these stories come from me being on Greta, but I was outside and a guy came up to me and he was really sweet, and he was like, do you know where there's a smoking area around here? And obviously Walt Disney World have now banned smoking from the parks, you have to go outside. So I explained this to him and he was completely understanding of the whole thing and was like, yeah, no worries, fine. And he started to walk away, but then came back and was like, if I started smoking right here, right now, what would you actually do? To which I got so smug because I know that I have the power to literally throw this guy out of the park. And I just looked at him and was like, sir, if you start smoking here right now, I will have to throw you out of the park, and it won't be nice, it won't be fun. Yeah. And he looked at me and patted me on the shoulder and said, fair enough, and left. And honestly, to this day, that's one of my proudest moments, because I just know that, like, because of me, that guy actually listened and probably didn't smoke in the parks. So yeah. So the next story I have is actually the final one that is mine. The rest of them actually come from some of my friends. Obviously I'm going to keep them anonymous and stuff, but I will kind of share their role. I feel like this one happened a lot. I feel like a lot of cast members get this happening to them. But I was once a greeter outside my restaurant, and I was asked which way it was to Tower of Terror. Just for emphasis, I work in Magic Kingdom, and Tower of Terror is in Hollywood Studios. So I kind of looked at the guest and was like, oh, you realise it's not in this park, right? It's actually in Hollywood Studios, so you want to get on a bus. And they were like, oh, we thought it was all in this park. To which I was like, okay, you're a first timer, fine, I'll take it. I was like, no, it's not, but the bus is super quick and easy, only take like 20 minutes. If you leave and jump on the bus, you can be at Hollywood Studios in 20 minutes and then be on Tower of Terror. They were so confused. Like, to this day, they still did not understand. They were just so confused about the whole situation. They just didn't understand why they couldn't walk to Hollywood Studios or to Tower of Terror. They didn't know where it was, and they weren't listening to me, and I was like, oh, okay. So they left after I told them to go that way. They went that way, at which point I decided that I didn't want to be greeter anymore and went in for a water break, because I did not want to risk them coming back and telling me they couldn't find it, because honestly, I had just lost the will at that point. Okay, so on to some stories from some of my cast member friends. This one comes from one of my custodian friends who said that one time when she used to be a custodian, she was pin trading, and a mum and a child had come up to her, and the mum of the child started shouting at their child and told them not to go up to the disgusting cleaning lady. I mean, firstly, custodians are so presentable and so kind. Like, I feel like parents definitely get the wrong idea of custodians. They're not just disgusting cleaning ladies. They're very nice people, and they will pin trade and talk to you for ages, and they're so good with kids. And I just find it funny that, like, you look at someone and say that to them. The next one comes from my friend who was quick service in Epcot, and she said that she was once asked by a guest where they can get a monorail to Universal. I mean, again, probably a first time situation at the Tower of Terror, but I feel like this is slightly worse than Tower of Terror because, I mean, it's on the other side of Orlando to start with. And yeah, I want to know what goes through these people's minds. Like, how far do they think the monorail actually goes? I mean, it would be great if we could get a monorail to Universal. It would make life so much easier, but I feel like that's not going to happen anytime soon. So my friend was quick service in Frontierland, and she actually told me that a guest once asked her if her accent was fake because she had to pretend to be Scottish in Frontierland. just for context, she is actually Scottish, and I just find it so funny that the guest would think that highly of a cast member to do that. I mean, doing accents is hard enough, but doing a Scottish accent all the time would be really, really difficult. I love this story because I just think it sums up guest expectations of cast members so well. But no, we do not put on accents, and we are actually British, we're actually Scottish. Okay, and the final story that I just had to share was one from one of my friends who has had many a role in Disney World, so I have no idea where this actually happened, but she told me that she was once taking a guest order and their child opened their legs and just started to pee all over the floor. I'm going to leave you guys with this story because I feel like it needs reflecting upon. A child actually peeing on the floor in Disney World. Imagine being their parent. Imagine how mortified you'd be. Like, I wouldn't know what to do in that situation. Like, a child has just peed on the floor, and I honestly feel so sorry for the cast member that had to clean that up. Okay guys, I'm going to end this video here because my camera battery is flashing. I do hope you did enjoy it. I hope it gave you a good laugh or a good insight into what cast members have to see every day. Let me know if you did enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below if you have any crazy stories from Disney World, and I'd love to read them. And yeah, I'll see you guys again very soon with another video. Bye!